The snow angel. The snow had been falling for 3 days straight, blanketing the small town of Millfield in a silence that seemed to muffle even thoughts. Jake Williams pulled his worn jacket tighter as he walked across the parking lot to his garage, his breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. The fluorescent lights inside cast a warm, yellow glow against the white backdrop of the storm. Jake had owned Williams Auto Repair for 7 years now, ever since his father passed and left him the small business. It wasn't much, a 2-bay garage on the edge of town, but it was honest work, and it kept him afloat. Barely. The past few months had been particularly rough. Fewer customers meant fewer repairs, and fewer repairs meant he was behind on the rent again. He fumbled with his keys at the side door, his fingers numb from the cold. The lock had been sticking lately, another repair he couldn't afford to fix properly. As he pushed the door open and stepped inside, he flicked on the overhead lights and immediately noticed something that made his heart skip a beat. There, lying on the concrete floor near the hydraulic lift, was a woman. She was young, probably in her mid-20s, with platinum blonde hair that caught the light even in her current state. Her white dress was torn and stained with what looked like blood. Dark sunglasses covered her eyes, and she appeared to be unconscious. Snow had somehow gotten inside and was scattered around her, as if she had been there for some time. "Hey," Jake called out, rushing to her side. "Can you hear me?" The woman stirred slightly, her head turning toward his voice. Her lips moved, and he had to lean close to hear the faint whisper that escaped them. "Help." Jake's mind raced. He should call 911, get an ambulance here immediately. But something held him back. Maybe it was the way she was dressed, or the expensive-looking jewelry glinting on her wrists, or just the sheer impossibility of how she had ended up in his locked garage. Nothing about this situation made sense. He gently placed his hand on her shoulder. "You're hurt," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "I'm going to help you, okay? But I need to know your name." She tried to speak again, but only managed another whispered, "Help," before her head fell back against the concrete. Jake looked around his garage, weighing his options. The smart thing would be to call the authorities immediately. But something in his gut told him there was more to this story. The woman's dress, despite being torn and bloodied, looked expensive. Her sunglasses were designer. Even unconscious, there was something elegant about her that spoke of wealth and privilege. What was someone like that doing in his rundown garage? Instead of reaching for his phone, Jake gently lifted the woman in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, almost fragile. He carried her to the small office at the back of the garage, where he kept an old couch for the long nights when he worked late on difficult repairs. He laid her down carefully and grabbed the first aid kit from behind his desk. It wasn't much, some bandages, antiseptic, and basic supplies, but it was better than nothing. As he began to clean the cuts on her arms and face, she stirred again. "Where?" she whispered, her voice slightly stronger now. "You're safe," Jake said softly. "You're in my garage. I'm Jake. What's your name?" She reached up slowly and removed her sunglasses, revealing striking blue eyes that seemed to hold a mixture of fear and confusion. "Emma," she said quietly. "Emma Harrison." The name hit Jake like a bolt of lightning. Harrison. Everyone in Millfield knew that name. Harrison Industries owned half the businesses in town, including the building that housed his garage. David Harrison was the wealthiest man for miles around, a man whose decisions affected the livelihoods of hundreds of people. "Harrison," Jake repeated, trying to keep his voice steady. "As in Harrison Industries." Emma's eyes widened with what looked like panic. "Please," she said, struggling to sit up. "You can't call my father. Not yet. I need time to think." Jake helped her sit upright, his mind spinning with questions. "Emma, you need medical attention. These cuts, they look serious. And you might have a concussion." "I'm okay," she insisted, though Jake could see she was anything but. "Please, just give me a few hours. I'll explain everything, I promise." Against his better judgment, Jake found himself nodding. There was something in her eyes, a desperation that went beyond physical pain. He had seen that look before, in his own mirror, during the darkest days after his father's death when creditors were calling every hour. Over the next few hours, as the snow continued to fall outside, Emma slowly told Jake her story. She had been engaged to marry a man her father had chosen for her, someone who would be good for the business. The wedding was supposed to be tomorrow. But she had discovered something about her fiancé, something that made her realize she couldn't go through with it. He only wants the Harrison money, she said, accepting the cup of coffee Jake offered her. And my father only cares about the merger this marriage would create. Nobody asked what I wanted. Jake listened without judgment, occasionally checking her wounds and making sure she was comfortable. He understood more than she knew about feeling trapped by circumstances beyond your control. So you ran away, he said quietly. Emma nodded, wincing as the movement aggravated her injuries. I took my car and just drove. But the storm got worse, and I crashed into a ditch about a mile from here. I walked until I found your garage. The door was unlocked. Jake frowned. No, I always lock up. I'm sure I locked it last night. Maybe the storm damaged the lock, Emma suggested. Or maybe. She paused, looking around the humble office with its mismatched furniture and faded photographs of classic cars. Maybe someone upstairs knew I needed to find someone I could trust. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of her words settling between them. Outside, the storm was finally beginning to ease, and weak afternoon sunlight started to filter through the windows. Your father must be worried sick, Jake said eventually. Half the town probably has search parties out looking for you. Emma pulled out her phone, which had somehow survived her ordeal. 12 missed calls, she said, scrolling through her messages. But none of them are from my father. They're all from Richard, my fiancé and the wedding planner. The hurt in her voice was unmistakable. Jake felt a surge of anger toward people he had never met, people who had everything but seemed to value nothing that truly mattered. Emma, he said carefully, what are you going to do? She looked up at him, and for the first time since he found her, she smiled. It was a small smile, but it transformed her entire face. I'm going to call off the wedding. And I'm going to tell my father that if he wants me in his life, he needs to respect my choices. That's going to be hard, Jake said. Yes, Emma agreed, but I met someone today who showed me what real kindness looks like. Someone who helped a stranger without asking for anything in return. That gives me hope that there are still good people in the world. Jake felt his cheeks warm at her words. I just did what anyone would do. No, Emma said firmly. You did what Jake Williams would do. And that makes all the difference. As the afternoon wore on, Emma made her phone calls. Jake listened from the garage as she canceled the wedding and had a difficult but necessary conversation with her father. When she finally emerged from the office, she looked exhausted but relieved. My father wants to meet you, she said. He's grateful that you took care of me, and he wants to thank you properly. Jake shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. Really, it was nothing. It was everything, Emma corrected. And Jake, he also mentioned something about Harrison Industries looking for a new automotive service provider. Something about the current contract being up for renewal. Jake's eyes widened. A contract with Harrison Industries could transform his struggling business overnight. But that's not why I'm telling you, Emma continued. I'm telling you because good people deserve good things. And because sometimes, when you help someone find their way, you end up finding something yourself. As David Harrison's car pulled up outside the garage an hour later, Jake realized Emma was right. He had found something in the snow that morning, not just an injured woman, but a reminder of who he wanted to be. And sometimes, that was worth more than all the contracts in the world.